Too close. But too close. Sorry. It's a bit too close. Right? Very cool. Don't want to see so much of me. Okay, Erev Tov, everybody. So we are 30 yom lefnei Chag, Shalem v'dorshim b'chot HaChag, within 30 days of Pesach. We have one less day this year because we had Purim was a day later. So, all right. But so one of the questions that comes up every year, and many people ask, I know many people go away for Pesach. So the question is, what do you have to do with your house that you're not going to be out on Pesach? Obviously, the house you're going to be out on Pesach, you have to do b'dikat chametz, you have to clean your house, etc. What if I'm not planning and no one's planning on being inside the house for the duration of Pesach itself? So, Shulchan Aruch, Siman Taf Lamed Vav, is here Siman talking, the title is Dinam Mefalesh Layam, Bayam, Vayotze B'Sha'ela. Somebody goes out and embarks on a journey, right? Within, they're going to be away from their home on Pesach. So the Shulchan Aruch says, "Mefalesh be'Yabasha mi'Yabasha layam v'yotze b'Sha'ela ve'eno maniach beveito mi sheyivdok." The first thing is, he says, somebody who leaves, goes out at land and sea, whatever it is, you're going on a journey, and you don't leave anybody behind who's going to check in your house. That's the first point. If there's somebody else who's going to be at the house, somebody staying there, or even if not somebody staying there, but you can appoint someone as a shaliach to go inside and to check the house. So that is that way you can fulfill the takana of check on Erev Pesach. That's the best. And Mishnah Berurah points out, he says, "Eino maniach beveito, rotzeh lomar." In other words, שלא ציווה לאחר או לאחד קודם נסיעתו שיבדוק כשיגיע זמנו. This whole thing, what we're talking about now, is a case where you have not appointed somebody as a shaliach to check your house on Erev Pesach. Right? I'll just say now in brackets, and we'll talk about this at length. We've still got time to talk about it. But this year, of course, everything is different, because this year Erev Pesach is on Shabbat. Clearly, we're not going to do B'dikat Chametz on Shabbat itself. So we're going to bring B'dikat Chametz is going to be forward. It's going to be the night before. It's going to be on Thursday night rather than on Friday night. Okay, we'll get into all of that, all those details. Right? If you have appointed somebody else, you don't have to worry about your house. They will check it for you. Okay, so Shulchan Aruch continues. He says, so assuming that you're leaving your house and you've not left behind anybody who can check the house for you, so toch 30 yom zakuk livdok. If I'm leaving within 30 days of Pesach, so from now, right, and then within 30 days of Pesach, so from Purim and onwards, I'm still in my house, and that's when I leave. Even if I'm not going to come back throughout Pesach, I'm only going to come back afterwards, then zakuk livdok, you would have to check. You would have to do b'dikat chametz the night before you leave your house. The Ramah points out, you don't say a bracha for this. This is not the b'dikat chametz that Chachamim established. They established it needs to be done the night before Pesach, or in a case like this, 2 nights before, right? But you're doing it earlier because you're leaving. Therefore, you would not say the bracha, but you would still have to do b'dikat chametz the night before. We'll talk about exactly what that means and what that entails, right? You don't have to put down the 10 pieces of bread, etc. But that's if somebody's leaving within 30 days. It continues, Shulchan Aruch says, Kodem 30 yom ein tzarich livdok, right? If you left before 30 days, you don't have to check the house before you leave. Ukshemagia Pesach yivat lena. Right, so now I left before, more than 30 days before. My intention was, seemingly, if my intention was to return, and I'm now nowhere near my home on Pesach, I know I have Pesach left behind at the house, so then I can rely on the bittul. But there's no obligation to check before if it's more than 30 days. However, all of this is when you're not planning on returning until afterwards. Shulchan Aruch continues, Im da'ato lachzor kodem ha'Pesach, tzarich livdok, v'achar kach yetzeh, d'chayshina Hashem yachzor erev Pesach b'neshmashot v'lo yeh pnai levaya. In other words, if you leave, even if it's before 30 days that you leave before, but you're planning on coming back, certainly if you're planning on coming back during Pesach, or you're planning on coming back even before Pesach, but your flight might get delayed, you'll get there very, very late, and therefore you should check the house before you go out. Okay, all of this is based on the Sugya and the Gemara. There's 2 different ways of learning, at Rashi, Rambam, we won't get into that now. But the point is, the basic principle, by Varafa, there's a whole discussion there. But the basic principle is, if I leave my house before 30 days before Pesach, and I'm not planning on coming back, so okay, I've left my house, I don't have to do anything. But if I'm now within 30 days towards Pesach, which is where we are now, and I leave my house, and even if I'm not planning on coming back until after Pesach, nonetheless, I need to do b'dikat chametz the night before I go. Why do I have to do B'dikat Chametz now? We said without a bracha. Without a bracha. But why do we have to do B'dikat Chametz in the first place? So the Mishnah Berurah explains. It says, Toch 30 yom, right, since we're within 30 days, ואפילו אין דעתו לחזור כלל עד אחר הפסח, ולא יראה החמץ שבביתו. I'm not planning on coming back till after Pesach. Obviously, like I said, if I'm planning on coming back during Pesach, I need the place to be chametz free. But I'm not planning on coming back until afterwards. I'm not going to see the chametz that's in the house. משום דמאז והלאה חל עליו חובת הבדיקה. Because from this period of 30 days, קודם החג, we have this obligation. So he explains here the Mishnah Berurah. It's related to the other halacha that we mentioned. Earlier. Yeah, he says in the Sharat Tziyun, the shoalin be'ilchot haPesach kodem lePesach 30 yom. Since we have, we say it, and it says, but what 30 yom lefnei hachag, shoalin v'dorshim lefnei hachag. Actually has halachic ramifications. One halachic ramification is that within the 30 days now, we're learning Hilchot Pesach, but also it means this time is a time in which we are engaged in Hilchot Pesach. We have to be aware of Pesach. We have to be aware of things. So if I'm leaving my house and I'm leaving chametz behind, right now I need to be aware of it and I need to check it. Okay, so then the question people always ask. The first question is, right, I'm leaving, I'm going to America, I'm going to wherever, I'm not going to be here for Pesach. What do I have to do with my house before I leave? The answer is you have to do B'dikat Chametz the night before you leave, as we've just established, without a bracha. Okay. The next question is, Rabbi, what does that mean? What does this B'dikat Chametz entail? Does it mean you have to get down and you have to sweep up all the floors and you have to scrub everything and clean the chairs and clean the walls? Right? Well, what does it mean? B'dikat Chametz the night before you go. So here, where a lot of people get confused in terms of B'dikat Chametz in general. And there are a lot of unnecessary chumras that people take on. I will mention one thing. When we talk about chumras on Pesach, it's quite remarkable. There is a halacha in Siman Taf Mem Bet. The Shulchan Aruch says the following. He says, "Nagu legarer haktalim v'kisaot shenaga b'hem chametz." There was a minhag to clean to scrape the walls and the chairs that had chametz that touched them. Says the Shulchan Aruch, there is such a minhag. V'yesh lahem mamash yismochu, and they have what to rely on. Normally, when we say yesh lahem mamash yismochu, right, it means you have what to rely on to follow a kula, to follow a lenient opinion. We say the din is like this, and somebody who doesn't want to keep the din wants to do something else. Yesh lahem mamash yismochu. This is the only case that I'm aware of. There may be others, but this is the only one that I recall, where the Shulchan Aruch himself uses the phraseology of yesh hamal yismoch, not for a kula, but for a chumrah. He says, if you want to take on this chumrah, you can rely on it. Meaning, no, we don't just take on chumrah stam. If there's a reason for it, if there's a significant opinion that holds, etc. But just to take chumras for the sake of chumras, we don't do. When it comes to Pesach, there's all sorts of things that people are. Chametz is a serious thing. If that's their minhag, that's okay. They have what to rely on. But the implication is you don't have to do it. You don't have to scrape the walls. You don't have to scrape the chairs. You're not going to eat the chairs. It's okay. That's right. Hopefully, if you're going to eat the chairs, so you need to clean them for Pesach. All right. But that's the point. So you get to B'dikat Chametz, and not just B'dikat Chametz the night before, but the month before already now, and people do lots of things, right? Person wants to do spring cleaning before Pesach. Person's allowed to do spring cleaning before Pesach, but don't blame Pesach, right? That's you have to know what is Ikar Adin, and what do I actually have to get rid of, and what's Chumrah, etc. So here we have two reasons why we do B'dikat Chametz. We have two reasons why that are brought, basically Rashi and Tosfot at the beginning of Masechet Pesachim. Two reasons why we do B'dikat Chametz, and based on what the reason is, we'll understand, first of all, in different areas, the extent to which we have to clean, and particularly going back to our case, somebody's not going to be in the house for Pesach itself, so clearly one of the reasons is going to apply, one of the reasons is not going to apply. What are the reasons? So Rashi says, the first Rashi, Masechet Pesachim, in the Mishnah says that we check for Chametz the night before. So Rashi says, in order that a person should not transgress, Bal Yara'eh or Bal Yamatzeh. Right? We all know that there are two prohibitions against owning chametz on Pesach. Chametz is not like other isurim. Sometimes you have an isur achila, you can't eat it. Sometimes you can't get benefit from it either. When it comes to Pesach, you aren't even allowed to own it. Right? Why is chametz so much more stringent than other things? Different explanations, but one of the reasons is because throughout the year we're allowed to eat chametz. Right, and now it's not that basar v'chalav you're never allowed to eat. Other things, non-kosher meat, you're never allowed to eat. Chametz, so a person's used to the fact that I can eat chametz. So when it comes to Pesach, the Torah says don't even own it. You won't come to eat it, etc. But so Rashi says we have to do bdikat chametz because we have to get rid of any chametz. We can't own it. Just having it in our possession, that is an issur. Now, when we talk about bayir matzeh, which chametz is it that I'm not allowed to own? So I'm not allowed to own, right? If it's a significant, if it's something significant. If we're talking about crumbs, for example, according to the vast majority of poskim, other opinions as well. But crumbs, based on the Gemara and Psachim, which seems to imply that crumbs are nothing, crumbs are not significant. If I own crumbs, so to speak, I've not transgressed the prohibition of Bali or Bali Matzeh. There's no problem against owning crumbs. It's insignificant. So that is one reason why we do Bdikat Chametz. Now, Tosfot, again, at the beginning of Masechet Psachim and other Rishonim, ask this obvious question here in Rashi. And the Ran has a way that he resolves the question. But essentially, the question is, we see from the Gemara a number of places that on a Torah level, on a biblical level, in order not to transgress the prohibition against owning chametz, what do I have to do? I don't have to find it. I don't have to destroy it. All I have to do is I have to make it ownerless. I have to do what's called bittul. I have to do bittul balev or bittul bapeh, right? But I say that whatever chametz that I have I don't consider it mine. Now it has to be genuine. It has to be sincere. If I say I don't consider, all the whiskey that's in the cupboard, it's hefker, it's afradara, I don't consider it to be mine. It's nothing. And then the second that Pesach is over, you take all this, hefker, this dust out of the thing, and start drinking it. So then that's a sign that it wasn't sincere, and that's where mechirat chametz comes from, and all other things. But from on the Torah level, it's enough to just do bittul, just to nullify it, and it's not yours. So therefore, says Tosfot, I don't need the bdikat chametz in order not to transgress by Yireh or by Matzeh, because I could have gone through that with bittul. So why do we have this establishment that we have to go and we have to check the house anyway, and we have to get rid of all of the chametz? So the answer, he says, is because you might come to eat it, even if it's not an issue of owning it, but you might accidentally, you might see the chametz on Pesach, and you might come to eat it. And that would apply to anything. That would apply even to the smallest amount. So those are the two reasons that we have why we need to do bdikat chametz, why we have to go and get rid of it. Either it's related to owning chametz, or it's related to the fact that I might come to eat whatever chametz is left. And therefore, when we're cleaning our house, when we're checking, we're inspecting for chametz before Pesach, or we're cleaning the house. So if when I'm cleaning, or when I'm checking, or when I'm searching, the purpose of that is so that I'm not going to transgress by Yireh or by Matzeh, so anything that's inedible, and anything that's insignificant, and anything that's crumbs, etc., I don't have to be concerned about. That's irrelevant. However, if the reason I'm doing it is because so that I won't come to eat something, when I'm cleaning the kitchen, for example. So I go and say in the kitchen, I'll say, I've got all these crumbs of chametz that are left on the counter, but they're insignificant because it's not a kazait, whatever. No, if the crumbs are going to own to your food, then you're eating chametz. You can't do that. So there, we have to be more stringent. There, we have to make sure that we get rid of everything, every single crumb, so that we don't come to eat it. Okay, those are the two reasons, and those are how they play together. How does that relate to our original question we'll have to talk about tomorrow, in terms of somebody who is somebody's not going to be in the house? We have to do bdikat chametz for the house where I won't be in. So you can think already which reason it applies, which reason doesn't apply, and how that translates into practical terms. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Omer Sakadosh Baruch Hu Zakot Yisrael V'chach ba'alem Torah Mitzvot Shnei Madon Echvetz Man Tzil Kol Yagdir Torah V'Yodi.